You wake up one morning and you cannot find yourself. You're just not there anymore. Your life is still there, the people are there, everything around you is, but the person who you wanted to be is somehow disappearing. And this can happen after spiritual awakening only, not before. Your thought of becoming more conscious would make everything clearer. And instead you realize your old life stops fitting before the new life makes, well, sense. And you don't have really a structure for it. This is what people often call the ego death, but I think the name has made us misunderstand what is actually happening. Yourself is not dying. Your relationship to who you thought you had to be is changing. That distinction matters, and it is very important because when you understand, you stop treating the confusion as the problem and you begin looking at what the confusion is trying to actually tell you. Ego death does not necessarily feel like awakening while you are inside it. It's quite the opposite. It can feel remarkable ordinary. You pick up a book you once loved and it does not speak to you anymore. You spend time with people you have known for years and people you cherished, and suddenly you realize you have really nothing to say. The work that once made you ambitiously suddenly feels strangely empty. You look at your future you spent years creating, and you realize you are not longer sure if you want to have this future exactly. So nothing dramatic has happened, and something fundamental has changed nevertheless. Many people become frightened at this point because we build our lives around continuity. I was this person yesterday, therefore I expect to be this person tomorrow, just with more light or with more knowledge. But consciousness does not always develop that way. Sometimes you become aware of something that makes it impossible to return completely to the person you were before you saw it. You just have awareness now. And then comes a very particular kind of loneliness. It is not the loneliness of being without people. It is the loneliness of no longer being who you were when these people knew you. There's a big difference. And I think many women experience this very deeply. You may have spent years becoming the reliable one, the successful one, the understanding one, the woman who keeps everything together, always. And then one day, consciousness asks a very uncomfortable question. Is this actually who you are? Or is this simply who you became very good at being? That is where ego that becomes interesting, because the ego is not simply the selfish or difficult part of you. It is not the spiritual villain we have to destroy. Your ego is also the identity through which you have organized your life before. It contains your ideas about who you are, what you deserve, what love should look like, what you expect from yourself. Some of that identity is deeply true. Some of it was just necessary at some time. Some of it was created because you had to adapt. And some of it may simply have reached the end of its usefulness. You don't longer need it. So when consciousness changes, the identity does not always change at the same speed. The consciousness has moved on. The life has not caught up to it yet. Now, there is a mistake that is very easy to make. We become so uncomfortable with not knowing who we are that we immediately try to become somebody else. A new philosophy, a new teacher, a new complete life. Anything that gives us an answer to the question, who am I now, is acceptable. But move slowly, because if you replace one identity before you have understood why you outgrow it, you may simply create another version of the same structure. You do not need to decide immediately who you are becoming. First, understand what you are not longer willing to be. That is much more important. And this importance is the difference, because perhaps The problem is not that you have an identity. Perhaps the identity you have can no longer hold the consciousness that is emerging through you. Then the work is not destruction, it is transformation. You do not have to erase yourself. You have to become capable of expressing more of yourself consciously. And suddenly, many of the strange experiences around ego death begin to make more sense. You just understand it. Why does the old work feel so wrong? Why do certain relationships feel different now? Perhaps the way you participate in them has changed. Why do you suddenly need more solitude? Perhaps you need enough quiet time to hear what you actually think before anybody else's expectations tell you who you should become next. Not every period of disorientation is spiritual. Not everything is spiritual transformation. Not every loss of identity should be romanticized as awakening. If you are seriously struggling to function, if you are frightened by what you are experiencing, or if your perception of reality has become unstable, spiritual interpretation should not replace appropriate professional support. Discernment belongs in this too. But when you're functioning, when you can observe what is happening and you recognize that your values, your identity, and your direction are undergoing a profound change, then there is something very practical you can do. Stop asking, "Who am I?" for a moment. That question may simply be too large for now. Ask smaller questions. What feels still true? What no longer is true for me? What am I doing because I genuinely chose it? What am I doing because the previous version of me chose it? My old self. And perhaps the most revealing question of all, what would I stop doing if I no longer needed anyone to recognize me as the person I used to be? That's a real game changer. Do not answer these questions dramatically. You do not have to resign tomorrow or end your relationship or sell everything and move to a mountain. Just observe. Because transformation becomes dangerous when every internal change immediately becomes an external decision. You need time for this. Give consciousness time to become clear, then act. And do not assume that everybody from your old life belongs to your old self. Some relationships will change with you. People grow with you. Some people will understand much more than you maybe expected from them. Some will not. Let the relationships just reveal themselves. You do not need to manufacture loss in order to prove that you have transformed. The same applies to your personality. You do not have to become unrecognizable. Enormous parts of the woman remain completely true. Her humor, her intelligence, her tenderness, her ability to create, to care, to love. Ego death does not require you to throw all of that away. The work is more precise. You begin distinguishing between what is essential and what was constructed around it. And this is why I think ego death is actually a rather poor name, because the goal is not the death of you. The goal is not to become nobody. You still have to live. You still have to make decisions. You still have to create, to be there for others. You still need a self through which consciousness can act in this world. The question is whether that self is serving consciousness or restricting it. At first, you notice everything that is disappearing. Later, very quietly, you begin noticing what is returning to you. Interest, direction, desire, but it will feel different. Less like something you were told to want, more like something you recognize as part of you. And maybe this is the moment when the next version of you begins to become visible, not because you invented her, because you finally created enough space to hear her. So if you're in that strange place where your old life still exists, but you no longer completely recognize the person living in it, do not rush. Pay attention, keep your discernment. Do not make confusion your new spiritual identity. Ask what remains true for you. Ask what has completed its purpose. Then give yourself enough time for those answers to become clear. Perhaps ego death is badly named because what is ending is not you. It is an identity that can no longer contain who you truly are. And then the real work begins. Have you ever reached a point where your old life was still there, but you were no longer the same person inside it? No, that's the same. Tell me in the comments. I would really like to know. My name is Nicky Sabeti, and if you like this content, please like and subscribe and help this channel grow. Thank you for watching, and I see you in the next episode.